Whoa, it's been 10 years of Windows 10. And today, most versions of the widely used operating system will be getting their last updates. Can you believe how fast time flies? In July 2015, a bit over 10 years ago, Microsoft released Windows 10, dubbed at the time the last version of Windows. Turns out the source of that was a tangent made by a Microsoft developer at a product presentation that was taken out of context, but even though we all know that statement ended up not being true, it did reflect a shift in how Windows would be developed and released going forward. The software industry had started to realize that selling subscriptions and ads was much more lucrative than selling fixed licenses for software, and thus came the rise of software as a service. Windows was no exception. For starters, feature updates would come much more frequently, at twice a year, than the service packs of old. With the exceptions of some specialized enterprise releases, you'd be pushed onto the next major Windows 10 build within 2 years. Also, Microsoft notably offered Windows 7 and 8 users free upgrades to Windows 10. Upon release, Windows 10's market share grew quickly, partly because of the free upgrades, but also because it was generally well received. It ditched the Metro Start Screen business that pushed Windows 8 users either off Windows 8 or to third-party start menu alternatives, and instead integrated its Universal Windows Platform, or UWP, apps alongside the traditional backwards-compatible desktop. And UWP wasn't just compatible with Windows itself, but also other Microsoft devices, notably Xbox. Meaning Xbox games became playable on Windows 10. Along with UWP came a much-awaited replacement for the oft-maligned Internet Explorer, Microsoft Edge. It was mediocre at launch and stayed that way until Microsoft scrapped the UWP version altogether 5 years later and replaced it with a version based on Chromium. Personally, I didn't see much use of the legacy Edge other than when my dad used it to annotate PDFs. Other big features included Windows Hello, which unified fingerprint and facial recognition functionality into Windows settings and extended it beyond just login to other privilege elevation scenarios, like running programs as an administrator. And a huge one was Cortana. Windows 10 came out during the peak of the mid-2010s voice assistant hype, and Microsoft was no exception to all the tech companies trying and struggling to implement voice assistants in their products. Which brings me to the criticism that Windows 10 got. One big word that I kept hearing about Windows 10 after its release was telemetry. By default, Windows 10, sometimes through Cortana and otherwise through core applications and features, would phone home with information like keystrokes, calendar items, and contacts. Most of it could be disabled either in the out-of-box experience or in the settings, but the publicity nonetheless hurt Windows 10's reputation in more technically inclined and privacy-minded circles. And Microsoft also built in ads, which really made some people feel like they, not the operating system, were the product. In the spirit of taking control away from users, Windows 10 also aggressively pushed the free upgrades I mentioned earlier by automatically downloading update files and making it intentionally hard to find the cancel button on the installer. And after installation, the Home Edition would automatically download updates. Being the constantly developed piece of software it was, new Windows 10 feature updates would sometimes break drivers and programs. I, for one, had to roll back an update once after discovering that trying to put my computer to sleep would cause it to crash. All of these things kept me from really using Windows 10 until 2018, when I finished my PC and was barred from getting updates on Windows 7 or 8.1 since I had an Intel Kaby Lake Pentium CPU at the time. By then, some of the issues that I mentioned earlier were ironed out through feature updates. And new features that either fixed bugs or were genuine improvements kept coming out over the years. Notably, the Windows subsystem for Linux came in 2016 around the time cloud computing, largely run on Linux servers, was booming, and light and dark themes came in 2019. Windows 10s came to respond to the surging popularity of Chrome OS, although it wasn't as well received because it was, in short, everything bad about Windows 8. The updates continued into the AI age, with the last updates adding the Copilot LLM chatbot. For the most part, I was spared the largest update-related breakages since I mostly ran enterprise versions on my dad's computers, and depending on the system, things were for the most part stable. But as updates come to an end, many people will be asking what to do, especially since Windows 11 doesn't support a lot of earlier hardware that ran Windows 10. Security-wise, Microsoft is providing extended security updates to enterprise customers for up to 3 years if they pay a fee, and for normal people like you and me, there's an option to enroll for free by logging in with a Microsoft account and enabling some features, granting security updates for up to a year. But it doesn't seem too necessary, at least to me. Personally, I run the 2016 LTSB release on my PC at home and get updates for another year, and I switched to Debian Linux on my laptop midway through high school. And the security risks of continuing to use Windows 10 aren't nearly as bad as they were back in the Windows XP era, especially since I don't plan to use my unsupported Windows 10 devices very heavily on the internet going forward. Overall, Windows 10 is still pretty widely used, and Windows 11 only caught up in market share recently, but I don't expect an earth-shattering surge in malware infections. And 10's popularity is kind of a testament on its own. At the very least, it's kept me from 2017 until now, and it's powered many of the computers that I've shown on this channel and used to make videos. So today, I say with fond memories, Windows 10, see you around.